Ashley Gattuso. We are joined here today by Wade Sellers. Thank
Hi
you
there.
for joining us, Wade.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
His newsletter is called Apps Weekly. It's about apps, and you can find it over at appsweekly.com. When I met Wade, he was using Curated and Bublup together. He is currently employed at Bublup as their product marketing manager, but he wasn't when he contacted us. And so he actually put together a webinar about how he uses those two products together to create his newsletter. He's going to walk us through that newsletter today, but we'll have a link in the description to that webinar if anyone is interested in the combination of the tools that he's using. So welcome. Tell us all about Wade and Apps with Wade. And what is the term that you use for, is it Wade Watchers?
Oh, Apps with Wade. Oh yeah, the Wade Watchers. Yeah. yeah. People got a kick out of that one.
Yeah. So he was like in a foreign country in, where were you, Turkey or?
I was in Turkey for the pandemic, yeah.
Okay.
I've been traveling for the last couple of years. I did one of those sell it all and moved to Bali situations and then traveled around. I was on my way to Colombia and was like, I'll stop in Turkey. The pandemic thing happened. I said, I'll wait, I'll wait this out for a week or two. 4 months later, I then was pushed out of Turkey because I overstayed because you couldn't leave.
Oh, yeah.
So we just kept going. Yeah.
So being a digital nomad, publishing a newsletter, those things kind of work well together.
I think so.
It seems.
My deal with this was I had a long career in the military and then I switched up everything and I learned how to build apps. I needed something different. And I've been a full-time app developer for 7 years, 7 years. And while doing it, I don't know, I geek out about this stuff. I'm coding, everything's very dry and do this, rush. But like on the side of like making apps, I like genuinely love, like I go to the app store, like someone goes like shoe shopping. Like for instance, like I like window shop. I scroll through and I'm like, oh, that looks cool. Let me try that, and I Google things, like I look at news feeds about news. Like I'm curious about business and I like the businesses that surround it. And I just kept stumbling on like cool things that I thought were like worth, I don't know, having a conversation about. And I didn't really have a place to talk about this. Like app development has its own world. And then there's like nothing, just like apps in general. And that's when I was like, man, it'd be cool if I just had a newsletter. Then people can talk to me and I can talk out. And this seems like a good spot to at least, I don't know, get it off my chest and like geek out about the thing I wanted to geek out about. So that's what I did. What's funny was I was looking at an iOS development newsletter when I liked the platform and I was like, what is this thing he uses? And then I was tipped off by a friend, like scroll to the bottom and I'm like, oh, it's called Curated. Oh wait, he helped build the thing. Okay, what? So I hopped in and gave it a test run and honestly, it's perfect. It's perfect for my needs. I love it. I Google stuff. I find cool articles. I want to have conversations about them. So I get my little blurb conversation, my little opinion piece, and then boom, there's your link. Or, hey, this is one worth downloading. Boom, here's a download link if you're interested. And I love it. I've been building that out. And while building it out, I work for this platform, this app called Bublup. And it's kind of like cloud storage and you can share stuff and stick anything in folders, like links next to videos and all this stuff. And I started working for them only because, again, stumbled on the product, loved it, then like reached out to them with questions and then just kept reaching out to them enough to eventually they were like, you want to like work for us? And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool.
Everyone on LinkedIn who's like looking for a job right now, listen, like
that's it.
Like I'm not saying this is a mantra for everyone. Obviously, if there's a job opening that you want, apply for it, but 'tis no better thing than to be having a conversation with someone about their service or their product or what they're doing that you're passionate about and make sure they know you're available
100%.
for work, like establish a relationship first.
Especially in tech. I mean, where I'm at, like it's a lot about who you know. A lot of internal hires happen and it's a word of mouth that gets you to the CEO's interview or whatever, what have you. So if you come in the door just with genuine interest, like a motivated user, that then proves themselves as a power user and has ideas for how to, innovate a product or solve a problem, like you're basically working for them for free. So then if you expose any sort of interest or an opening does come up, you kind of just float your way into it because they're like, well, we don't have to train them the product.
Yeah, there's no onboarding.
All that.
So Apps with Wade, I typically don't interview, like a majority of the people I have been interviewing are not on the curated platform, just because I like to give diversity, and I don't want this series to be about curated. I want it to be about like really good expert information that is delivered through organic conversations that we have about newsletters and what the people who are like in the trenches of building out newsletters are experiencing, what they have learned that changes over time. So this is like your place to come if you're into that conversation and that dialogue and it's going on. So it's a delight to have someone who is on our platform who like is so excited about our platform that you were doing webinars before, like you were planning a webinar before I met you.
I did a YouTube
included
live.
Our product, and I was like, wow. This is every marketer's dream.
That's what I said. I reached out to you and said, hey, with or without your permission, I'm about to talk a whole lot about you. Do you want to like figure out a way to collaborate with this thing?
Yes, let's do. And so it makes sense today that we talk about Apps Weekly, just because I feel like we've hit this moment where people need to see kind of what your process is. I do a lot of interviews with people where I watch them talk about every Google Sheet they're using and every Pocket and all of these different programs that they're using. And so it'll be interesting for people to see what it looks like with like basically one curation platform. You're using Bublup, and then one building and sending platform, and just how you've made them work together quite well. So without further ado, share your screen.
I will share my screen. All right. Let's go here. And okay, do you see a big old Chrome screen?
I do. You're a dark mode person, it seems.
I'm a dark mode
You're
person.
A dark 100%.
Mode. Love it. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to show you is the interesting bit about this is, okay, so with Bublup, I kind of use that almost instead of or right before I build a newsletter. I feel like there's like this thing that Bublup allows me to do, which is I can stick a bunch of stuff in a folder. So, okay, this is what we're going to mess with today. This is issue 16 of Apps with Wade, okay? And how this works for me in this whole curation process is I'm just naturally geeking out all week and looking at app stuff. I might be on my phone, I might be on the computer, whatever. I might be just like waiting in line, I'm in New York City, I wait in line often. And I'm just kind of like perusing. And when I see something like worth like going like, hey, that's neat, I want to place it somewhere. Now, depending on what device I'm on, that can be easier or harder depending on platform. The beauty with Bublup is basically it's cloud storage that like on your desktop or on your phone, you can just shove stuff into it. Like whether it's a Spotify playlist or a link to a website or an image or a video or something you capture right there, you just throw it in. And this is really handy for me. And I have some examples here based on literally started this next issue yesterday because I put out the last issue last night. So like we're going in fresh at this.
Yeah.
This is basically like this is my little folder. This is my little world. So it starts out with like Apps Weekly, and I just have a bunch of stuff. So like my little app ideas, Instagram tips. So like a lot of times I focus on the Instagram app because it's one that I love. Things to just go look at, right? So my whole world lives here. My newsletter issues start out in my research, and then they go through different issues. So I open up a folder for every new issue, and then in my head I go, okay, this week, as you go look at stuff, stick interesting stuff in here. It doesn't have to be, yes, definitely going in the newsletter or not, but this is where when it's time to build the newsletter, here's where this is going to be all the searching you have to deal with.
It's like your stockpile of content that's waiting for you that you have casually seen and thought might be good for the newsletter. So here's one thing I want us to do. I want us to pause, and I want you to show Apps Weekly to everyone, because I love to go like from the end and then back up, or at least show the finished product and then show people how you get there. So this, you're using the nice little permissions that people can check, just so you can have an idea of what percentage of people are using what device. Because that's great.
Because I tend to lean towards iPhone, so I'm more partial to Googling that, and that happens to be my research. But I was curious to know how large the Android market was that was in my subscribership, because I should respect that, and I should be looking at more information for them as well. Also, if I'm going to go look for download links, I do have a large Android subscribership too, so I will like go look for the Android download link too, because it's respectful to the audience.
Yeah, that's great. And so then you have your blurb, which is like your little introduction.
It's like my journal entry. Yeah. It doesn't have to be talking about apps at all or anything like that. Like this one is like, I did the little Siri thing. There's 33 days left until the end of the year. And I was like, okay. And thankfully, next year's marketing department has a better angle, for 2021. So it's just kind of joking on, we're almost near this 2020 end. After that, I kind of break down my little categories by like, I start with some news. So some basic kind of news stories. I thought these stories were neat. This is a new iPhone feature where you can customize your desktops. Apparently 15% of the US iPhone population has done that. And I'm like, wow, honestly, I feel like that's kind of a power move. And that's a lot of people that messed with that, which means they must have made it easy. And that's how the article describes what's going on here. There's some Apple stuff about it doesn't cost as much for developers. They don't have to give Apple as much if they're small. Yeah, so that's nice. I thought that was worthy. This is a crazy story. I don't know if you ever noticed the glass bottles that say that there's like a 5-cent or a 10-cent refund on them.
Yes.
Well, in Michigan, it's a dime, and someone made an app where they'll literally have someone like come get it. They'll take 4 cents. The app takes 1 cent, and you get the nickel. So you recycle it without recycling it. I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. There's a dime sitting there, and this app's going after it. Like, that's so brilliant.
That's insanity.
I love it. Then I switch into things like app picks. So this is like me cruising through the app store and finding things. This was kind of cool. This is just like a little daily dose of chicken soup for the human soul kind of app. And I thought it was kind of cool at this time. This one was just, it's so funny. The guys, 2 of the developers for the Amazon Alexa. Oh, she's actually right here. Sorry. I just muted her. I knew she was about to talk.
Did Alexa light up?
Yeah. I was like, no. So 2 of the developers for that banded together and developed this app that apparently like helps translate cat meows into English. And like whether it's a joke or not, that's just adorable because it's coming from such credible sources and it's such a silly idea. So I kind of found that to be funny.
My daughters would love that.
And then I usually have a closing statement. This one was about, Thanksgiving just happened. I'm testing out different things with these because I want to see who gets to the bottom. So this one, I asked for a reply. I said, what's the best part about Thanksgiving dinner this year? For me, it was the stuffing. Why do I only eat it 1 year? Right? One day a year.
Right.
Just because I want to see if I want to know who gets to the bottom, and then I want to know who like replies, which I will reply. And my goal is always to be like super friend this person. They're taking a moment to not just read, but actually engage. That's kind of the epitome of this thing. It's a quick
right.
read.
So you got like 3 or 4 categories in there, if I'm doing my scroll math correctly. And then for people who aren't familiar, this is like the web version of the newsletter. The email version looks very similar, but it has like a thin logo at the top with his Apps Weekly logo. And you can easily cruise, like it just automatically happens, the archives up there at the top. So people can choose whether or not to turn archives on or off. Okay, so now we've seen the finished product and we know you're working in Bublup and you are like, I'm trying to get us back to where we were. So you were like being Wade, cruising the internet through the day, standing in lines and chucking things into this folder whenever they seem like they might be newsletter worthy.
Exactly.
Okay.
So for instance, like I have some things in here for issue 16. Basically, like the first one of the easiest things I do, I go to search, I type in apps, I click the news tab, and then I go over to tools and I sort it by date. So I get the newest news with the word apps in it, right?
Okay.
Just like this is as generic as it gets. And this still finds neat things. Like, for instance, Spotify now has stories. Everybody keeps stealing the stories trend, and Spotify has stories. And I did just what you did. And I'm so glad that you snickered, because I was like, seriously, Spotify stories? That's cheesy. It's music. Like, you already are 3-minute stories. Like, in your audio, why do you need video? But then you know what?
It's Twitter, Facebook, Gram, LinkedIn.
They all do it. They all do it. So then I was like, okay, touche. So I read it, and it said like, well, some people have it and some people don't, which already makes me go, I wonder if I have it. So then I'm like, you just poked me and said, go test. And then I typed in what they said. They said, type in Christmas and see what happens. And I typed in Christmas and I saw a story. And so I saw a story and I was like, and honestly, it's kind of cool. So
I'm just in awe that you have a thing that was released early.
I got a free.
I'm always like, I don't have the feature yet.
So I pop it open. It looks like this. So this is an image that I threw up in Bublup, right? So I take a screenshot real quick on my phone, and then I shove it into this Bublup folder, and we move forward. That's why this is handy for me, because it's not just a link. It's like also the surrounding details,
context.
So like this was it. Like, I punch it in, you type in Christmas hints, and like there's that little story. So I go ahead and I tap on it, and I start cruising through them, and it's like, you're getting personal Christmas stories from the artist in a 15-second bite. And I'm like, that's interesting. And like there was a bunch of them there. And I was like, you know what? That story actually works, because this is stuff that I don't really care to follow Kelly Clarkson on Twitter or Instagram, but while I'm in music mode in my head, yeah, I'll give her 15 seconds to talk about a Christmas memory. And I kind of found that cool in a contextual way. So I drop it in there, right? And it's like, okay, so I stick in the stories. I grab my little screenshots, because who knows, one of these might end up being the clip that I drop as the image for the newsletter. So it sits in here. And then I move forward, and like there's another link, right, in apps. And this one is like, it's a silly quiz. Basically, it shows you 24 app icons, and it asks you which one is which. And I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. Let's see how I do. I got 23 out of 24 right. So like, I throw the link into Bublup, and then I also screenshotted my little results, and I threw that in there too, because maybe one is like more of a hook than the other, to be like, hey, maybe you're interested in this. Maybe you want to see how you scored, or like, can I get 24 because the app guy just got 23, like beat the app guy. Okay, so I go through my week, and this is what I do. I end up with like stuff like this. So like, for instance, if I go and issue back, you can kind of see like, so we saw, I think 5 or maybe 6 articles sat in there. I got 5, 10, 11 made it through the week. 11 articles I noticed last week. This is what made the cut. And then or 5 or 6 of them make the cut and they go in. Okay, so at this point, let's say like I've decided. I'm like, okay, this one's going in. The Spotify story one is brilliant. At this point, all I do when it's like time to like, okay, we're gonna leave Bublup world and go make, we're gonna go make Curated. I like that now I get the choice to go stick stuff into Curated, and I know I'm gonna use everything. Like, I don't use Curated's queue to decide what goes in. It gets there when it's going in, because it makes that whole process fast for me.
Yeah.
So
this is your like messy zone.
This is messy zone. All week I can play in this folder, I'm done. And then once I leave this folder, it's like, let's get the job done. So I go here and I open up the Spotify link. I use the little bookmarklet that you guys have created, and I get my link. So I use that little Chrome extension. And here I just quickly think like, what might be a title and a potential body. So now it's like, okay, it's time for my thoughts. And they'll go in here. So, I might say like, seriously, Spotify stories, something like that. That might be like, but actually, they're kind of cool.
I'm gonna correct you. It's Y''ER.
Thank you.
I mean, Ari.
this does get on the curated side. We go through a tougher.
I know that's the easier place
process.
to edit. I'm just being silly because you're live and it's fun.
A lot of times I do an email preview, and then that's actually where I notice all my spelling mistakes, because like I can catch them in email mode.
How come they sometimes I notice them better on the phone than I do on the large screen? Like the test on my phone, maybe it's because I'm only looking at like a block of copy at a time versus several lines, but I'll be like, oh, that's a fun typo.
So. Also, like if you wrote it in one screen dimension and you read it on another, oftentimes the words are in different order, kind of like where they cut off. So you're getting a fresher look at that same chunk. I
think we're getting like seriously psychology on ourselves right here, right now. Like that's a study. Like somebody knows all of that who is not us. But it's fun to speculate. It's like the difference between writing on a chalkboard and on a piece of paper. Like writing on a chalkboard feels strange to people. Remind me to tell you about the time that my husband and my mother had like a Christmas quarrel over the Kelly Clarkson Christmas show.
Okay.
That story exists.
Nice.
Basically, I just told you the story.
Okay. So basically at this point, I give it some sort of title, and like I'll throw somebody in there, and I try to keep this as personal as possible. This is my newsletter special because I'm in it. So this is where I get to shine. That's the way that I see this. You stick around, you get cool information. I curate it, but I hope that you find my email entertaining enough to get to the bottom. And I think that I'm responsible for you getting to the bottom of the email, not the links. So like my words should count.
Okay. Yeah. So you are furthering your relationship with this reader. It is highly personal. This is different than them going to like just a feed of news about apps. This is Wade's take on apps.
Right. This gives me permission to have my opinion. This allows me to be personal or to talk off base as long as my personality's there. I feel like this is the type of stuff where people start to understand who you are and they feel comfortable with replying. Also, if you were to have a sponsor and stuff like that, I feel like still going in personally and soft is a way to be honest and authentic, and it doesn't feel cold like there's just a billboard in the middle of my email. So I think that honestly, the words that you do have much more impact than just the words themselves when it comes to making a relationship through email over a weekly or bi-weekly or monthly term.
That's like the tone you're taking.
That's my strategy, at least.
Love it. Love it. And so what category would this be
so in? Something like this might be it's kind of an app pick because it's kind of neat, but I feel like if you've got Spotify, you've got Spotify. So at this point, this might be news. I might just stick this in as a news feature.
Okay.
Curated by Wade. At this point, I can drop an image in. So, right here, this is kind of where like it does get, my process gets slightly messy here because I usually have to go back and then like I have to like go find the
right, because you took the screen capture to Bublup.
Right.
So you either have to do something new or somehow get that retrievable.
Right. So at this point, I might like actually go to the article. I might do like a Command Shift 4. I might grab this, stick that in. Okay. So then add image, right? My screenshot. Where is it? Where are you at?
There it is.
Cool. I'll save it, right? And then I just move right back into the next one. Okay, what's the next one in Bublup I'm going to handle? What's the next one in Bublup I'm going to handle? Right, and I'll just go through this process. That's that. At that point, I go in. So I go into Curated, and I've created my issue 16, and I'll just see all of the stories, like the 5 or 6 stories over here,
Mm-hmm.
and I just hit import all. Like I've already categorized them. They go in. At this point, it's just this is like my favorite part. This is where I'm just like honestly on the couch, and I decide on what my blurb's going to be. I write my little journal entry, not too long, but I try to keep it current with something fun. I don't give those a title. I just dive right into like, okay, let's talk. This is where I start to be like, okay, like, is this what I'm gonna say? Okay, does it spell good enough? Is this too long, too short? Is it funny? Is it stupid? Maybe my image isn't good enough and I need a GIF. I might throw those in here, or maybe I go back and I go, maybe my screenshot was better than the image that was on the article itself. So I just go and I do my little tweakies here. I hit edit, and I always click the markdown support because I can never remember it. Actually, I had 2 tabs on it because I can never remember all the things. So I always have it open as my cheat sheet.
Do you know I figured out a thing by accident in markdown? Because in markup, is it markdown? Markdown. See, I'm so like not of the developer vein. Like that is the thing we are injecting into me, not that came naturally in my packaging. But so I accidentally one day used a hashtag and then realized that it creates like an H1.
You get a header?
And so it's not the title, but you can like have little header. Like I think if you do 2 of them, you get an H2. So if you're writing more and you need some formatting, that's my little cheat for everyone.
I didn't know that. I'm going to have to check that out.
I know. And it was completely by accident. So
that's awesome.
Because I thought I had put an asterisk or something.
I love that. I love that.
So then you preview the issue? Is that what?
Yep. Mm-hmm. I go through the news stories. I get to the end. The last thing I do is the in closing, which is usually some sort of call to action, or like I assume I'm talking to the super fan if they got to that level. So it's a little bit more personal if they're interested, or like a ask for them, like a reach out, reply. I hit or miss with those. And then, I'll do a preview issue. I tend to email it because I like to see it on my phone as well. I like to see how the images are going to look on my phone and make sure everything's all, good there.
Here's a good question. Do you tend to play around with the order of the stories in each category? So like if you have more than one in a category, do you start using that little drag feature?
I do. I will. I'll use in Curated. I'll drag around and I'll reorder it. This one was kind of one of it, and I tried to think about the path that people are potentially going down while they do this. I have a bunch of friends, and I know that there's a chunk of subscribers that are from Florida, because basically when I wanted my first subscribers, I just DM'd my friends on Facebook and was like, yo, sub. so I know, like, on my little map, I've got a chunk of Florida just like living there, and they're like my close friends, so I know they'll open it. So I fed them one first. And then I went to, like, honestly, probably the most important one, because it was already trending. They're approving it. So give them the hotness second. Then and so I do choose it. And then this one I thought was one of the neatest stories, but it's only neat if, like, you actually pay attention to something like that, or you're from Michigan and know it. So that one, went later. And then I try to keep my app picks towards the bottom in general, just because if you're coming for that, I want you to have to dig. That's like the value you actually got to go for. You got to actually dig for that.
Okay, yeah. So there's incentive to scroll, and then there's a closing, like a kicker is what I would call that. Some sort of
kicker, closer. I find in a lot of other emails, a lot of people like to stick a tweet or a TikTok or something like that, and it gets me often. It gets me down there. So I try to.
I've seen some trends around like these links that you don't know what it's going to be when you click it, and it's just linked, and it just says like, you'll never guess. Like it's very clickbaity, but it's like your little reward for making it to the bottom, and it's oftentimes a joke.
Yep. Yeah, I'm okay with that type of stuff, especially if it's playful.
Yeah. I do a challenge. I like that. So it gives people something to do that week until the next newsletter comes out. So we've talked about your process. We talked about what you're doing. Your goals for this newsletter, you kind of came about this organically. You wanted an outlet.
Yep.
So has that changed? Has that evolved? Like what's Apps Weekly to you right now?
It's honestly, it's more of an encouragement. I was doing this for fun, just naturally. And then there was a moment where it started to feel like I had to do it now because I just put this thing in place now. Okay, every week I have to say something interesting. And I felt slight pressure. And then I got through that and felt like, no, it's fine. Because I started to scrutinize and criticize the words and the choices I was making as like people worrying about what people were going to think. And then I was like, wait, this is my place. They can just unsub. I'm good. Like I'll find them. I'll find the ones that are interested. So then it got playful again. And now I can write my words and it's my stuff and what I find interesting. And I try and hope that I'm creating a space to, have like reply back, or you read my blurb next to the link and it doesn't feel so cold, like I just use some feeder to stick 10 links at you and throw you something just to get your email address, like I hope that the little response that I'm saying is not just for you to click on the link. I don't really care if you click on the link. There's no incentive for that. It's, did you find this interesting? Because I did, right? And so that's the connector for me. It's only continued to encourage me to do it more, truly.
Okay, so you're having, like, you went through a little, like, what would you call that? Like a imposter syndrome kind of.
It's where you have a hobby, then you turn it into a big picture, you added responsibility, then you get scared because you're forced to do it and now it's work. And then you have a breakout moment where you're like, I don't care what they think, I'm still doing this. This was fun to begin with. It will be fun now. And I just like went through the whole circle. I also put videos out on YouTube and it's the same situation.
Yeah, it's like the emotional roller coaster.
Paralysis, it's analysis paralysis. And then eventually you're just like, screw it. I'm just doing it because I want to. And then that's when people like it again.
True, because they feel your motive. Right. I don't care what words you use.
Genuine energy.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of putting something out there that's unique, because I usually ask people what makes their newsletter unique, I feel like you've kind of already answered that in that, like, it's your specific viewpoint.
Yep. It was I wanted a place to have a conversation. When I thought about a mailing list, I looked for other ones, because in the beginning I went the lazy route. I was like, is anybody doing this where I can like learn and talk to? And I couldn't find any that weren't like app development centric. I couldn't find anything that was just sort of just kind of about app news. And I was like, no way, really? Okay, well maybe. And so I started to like mess with the idea, and I started thinking, well, like, who's your audience? Everyone that uses apps? Okay, so that's 8 billion people. So who are you aiming for? And I still don't quite have that answer. So I rely on your interest in my personality to stick around.
You're finding it.
Yeah, I'm finding it.
You're in a discovery phase.
Right. And I know just I watch YouTube like crazy, and not just to watch YouTube, but to see what people do and like try to understand their decisions. And I understand that my path is a long one. You have to get someone invested in you. And the value proposition of a newsletter like this isn't nearly as high as other verticals where you're aiming directly at make more money, get more something. This is for you. Right. I understand that mine's slow and go, which means I have to be patient, not sweat it, and more importantly, make sure that I actually want to do this and I have fun with this, because I understand it's a long thing.
Okay, so you're not like pressurizing yourself anymore.
No, I understand.
To grow it, and yeah.
I find that if you find it neat and interesting, this is something where I've recently just dug myself out of a hole with contract work, because there's other verticals that I'm building into, which is like interviewing app developers, like interviewing designers, interviewing people that are in these apps, and like try to understand and uncover some of the stories behind these things, because I think that that's a missing piece of this whole thing. And something like this, where I find that like these subscribers are genuinely interested in app news, probably would be extra interested if also my personality went and reached out deeper into the app sphere and pulled articles, like curated my, like created something that's also on a curated thing. Like it's not just, hey, I Google search this interesting article. It's like, well, that interesting article actually got me to go ask this Spotify designer why the heck they decided to go for stories, and here's the answer. You know what I mean? It kind of builds on the whole thing. So there's an adventure element to it too.
Yeah, I love that idea of it being a discovery, because I think that so many people want like a long haul, step-by-step plan, when really just doing a thing gets you feedback, and then you iterate, and then you just do it differently.
For sure.
We call that in Girl Scouts, we call it failing forward.
I like that. Yeah, that's cool.
And so like the premise is like, try a thing, and the faster you try it and you just do it, the faster you will know if it's going to work or not. Which, like with this, you're giving it time to breathe and become what it is going to be, but it is also not your number one source of income or something like
for sure
that you have to have like 15-step plan because you can't pay a bill if this doesn't happen. So what advice would you give to like our audience is newsletter creators or people who are thinking about it? You come at it from a different slant. I talk to a lot of people on a big spectrum, right? So we've got like people who are coaching people on how to put out newsletters for a living, like consultants, and we have hobbyists, and we have like, I'm just starting something up, I send it out once a month, I don't know what it's going to be. Like, what is your advice as people consider that, and from your unique perspective?
Okay. One big thing, and this is me, I am someone that does overthink and over brainstorm before taking action. My advice isn't just go do it. My advice is, when you're thinking about this, really just chill out on those needing 7 steps. This thing doesn't have to make sense in the beginning. You can just play around. Worst case scenario is you send an email out to 6 family members, and that's where it stopped. But like, also, you don't have to apologize when you stop, because nobody's expecting it, which is great. The other thing too is, I was interested in creating something myself. I'm also very busy and I love my career. I understand that I only have so much time to also have free time, but I wanted to start building something for myself. And newsletters felt like less of a reach, but also gave me freedom to create, if that made sense. It wasn't as invasive as a YouTube channel, but it was a little more than just, I don't know, just chit chat.
What would you see as the, like, if you were considering a newsletter or a blog right now, end of 2020, like, what do you see as the advantage of the newsletter? Like, what propels that choice?
100% newsletter first. 100% newsletter starts first, and I'll tell you exactly why. The reason is if you're investigating, this is like such a great way to tiptoe into your investigating whatever topic you want, right? If you're a blogger, you got to write on a topic. You chose one topic, and now you got to go deep and add something that's worth writing and value and somebody actually is seeking out. That's a lot of responsibility for one topic. But why can't I skim the surface, find interesting things, like maybe 6 articles, and then when one actually does ping me, like Spotify stories, and why the heck are all these apps making stories, that might be something more compelling. I didn't have to like get married to one topic and then go deep. I actually got to kind of like skim the surface, let like my natural inspiration and interest like hit one that actually sinks in a little deeper, and then kind of go playful into it. And then let the newsletter be a spot where you're talking about it from a surface level. Then when one strikes you, let that be the deeper dive into the blog. Now you get twofold. You're starting with a newsletter where it's, I don't know, it just feels like I have less responsibility to adhere to it, creating on a consistent basis. Not to say that you shouldn't be consistent with your newsletter, but the barrier of entry between 2,000 word research blog post and a 6-article curated newsletter is like, it's a huge leap. It's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. So it gives you a
But
way to build a personal brand without building
sure.
a 40,000 word portfolio.
100%. And now you get someone potentially skimming you to just learn something new in a passive manner. And then when you do go into detail, who's to say that that's not the first article that you're curating on your newsletter? Well, you get 200 passive eyes that actually know who you are to go and potentially take a chance to read it. And if they enjoy the little bits of words that you have in your newsletter, it's almost like I'm inclined to see what they'd write about on one topic in long form if I like the way they use their words in short form. It feels like a good gateway, like a gateway into a blog.
So here's a good question that all this content talk has spurred in me, and we can stop the screen share. And I just want to ask you, and this will be the end because I know we need to wrap. Is we are, I'm about to say reaching a point of, but we are already beyond. There is content saturation. Going on the internet right now. I found myself today after like a few days break for Thanksgiving, going through so many emails and missed messages and things like that, and having to evaluate fairly quickly. It's valuable. It's not. It's valuable. It's not. And so my thought there was that, like, with that level of saturation, we have to become the thing that is valuable, the thing that is not easy to delete, the thing that actually one day when you want to use your personal brand to sell whatever, you eventually evolve it into being the marketing mechanism for, which is really awesome because it's just you and whatever. So how do you feel about content saturation? What would you tell people to do with their newsletters to not be the swipe and delete?
I think you go two directions and you have to choose one or the other, or you have to be an expert and then you can do both. And that is either do what everyone says and go deep and niche and go find the 1,000 people that absolutely need this thing in order for like go speak directly at that person. That's what everybody says. Pick your niche. You're right. The riches are in the niches, all that stuff. I hear that all the time. And I agree. That's a way to go. But also, I think that you can just be opinionated. I think that you can fall in love with my opinion. Let me energetically explain to you why that Spotify story thing is worth your time because of the emotional connection that I had with it, how I thought, wow, I don't care about Kelly Clarkson, but now I know her Christmas story in 15 seconds, and that was cool to me. Let me explain to you why I thought it was cool. Like, that's okay too, because some people are going to agree, or some people are going to feel like that was a unique take. And they're going to feel like you're the only place for that unique take because it's my opinion. And I think that that's an okay way to go. So I think you either laser target and go, hey, 27-year-old bachelor degree. I mean, you get ultra specific. Be like, I'm you and I'm researching your thing. So pay attention to me because I'm doing the work for you. Dang it. You know what I mean? Do that. Or be like, hey, this is something that is somewhere in your life. You probably passively think about it, but you still like it. And I'm the one geek that's out there that's really like pulling in the energy and emotion so that you don't care to think about apps the way that I do naturally, but you wouldn't mind taking 15 seconds to skim through and be like, that's kind of neat. I will spend 2 minutes on that one thing. I don't care to research apps. He does. And that 1 out of 6 is actually interesting. I'm able to give him 2 minutes of time based on his opinion to learn this thing that I think I might be interested in because I don't have to spend an hour or a week researching.
Okay.
I think that there's value there.
I think I just created a like phrase for this in my brain because we have like lead magnets. We have Russ Henneberry talks about share magnets, like things people want. They will share your newsletter to get said thing or whatever. I think that in the case of your newsletter, it's a point of view magnet. Like you are attracting subscribers who like your point of view, or maybe like to disagree with your point of view. But that's an interesting thing that I think we will see in the next 3 to 4 years, as we get past this, like everybody is doing narrative content marketing,
Right.
and telling a brand story,
Mm-hmm.
we probably will get into like, but what's that company's point of view? What are the
Mm-hmm.
unique points of view that like would attract me to this particular person or this particular company? Like, so
I think
if
that's
you're doing
fair.
personal branding, I think point of view magnet might be the, quote me later in a story, someone, point of view magnet.
POVM.
It's my 2020 hindsight.
I like it. Yeah, I think it's fair. You know, when it comes to video and writing and my personality, the largest compliment I always get has to deal with my energy. They're like, I just love your energy. It's kind of infectious. The way you talk, the way you explain things. I just like, I'm in it if you're in it. And I think that a lot of like, I don't think that I'm an expert in a whole lot of things, to be honest, but I share an opinion that sounds educated, and more than educated, it sounds enthusiastic. And like enthusiastic is enough. Is like
it
as long as you're
conveys.
yeah, it's enthusiastic as long as you're not selling. That's the key. If you're enthusiastic and it's a sales pitch, then we've seen that. We've seen that guy on late night TV.
That's
He
ShamWow.
exists. That's
Yeah.
ShamWow. That's OxyClean, right? And there's a lot of people like on social media that are those like they're energetic influencers, but clearly just doing it for that money spot right here. And like our brains know and feel that. It feels cold.
We want authenticity.
So what do? They have to be over the top entertaining in order to get us to stay along, right? It's got to be just like wacky, like I can't do that in my own life. That's
the attraction of Apps Weekly, is that it's not trying too very hard to impress you. It's like, here's this thing that made me giggle.
That's
like,
it.
That's a great app.
It's, hey, you use these things. It's absolutely insane how much you use these things. And the ultimate test is close all the apps, go one day, then the next morning, try to go close all the apps and count how many you just had to. You don't even know how many of these things are actually touching you every day. And so, and outside of us going, oh, cool, Square, it helps me do this for 5 seconds. Like, that's it. Like, that's as far as an app story gets until it breaks. And then you cuss it out and you tell people not to download it. Like that's literally how it works in the app world. But I've been in that app world, and I can tell you, I've created a startup that got money and then funded, and I've been fired from one, and I've been laid off from one, and I have succeeded in another one. So like, I know that there's this whole other narrative that's behind the scenes. And I also know that the decisions that are being made, like you see a feature, but you didn't understand that that was like lots of decision, lots of man hours, lots of like ethical, like, what do you think? Should we charge for that? Should it be free? Like there's all these weird things that go down to it. You just see a feature at the end. But like when you're in the trenches, it's interesting. So to me, when I read this news, I see like Spotify stories and I go something like, interesting. Why? Where is it interesting for them here? And then I start to go into that mode. Most people don't do that for apps, but they do find that sort of big, small business thing interesting. And I just kind of feed my thoughts and opinions on it.
Interesting. Okay. So there's, we'll close with this. There was an article I linked to a while back that was about like somebody who'd studied thousands of Axios newsletter emails and what they learned from those emails. And they were talking about, and I've done this once or twice, I'll have to kind of see if it's resonating with people, but this, what you just said, they put this bold statement after the story blurb, and it's like why it matters in bold, and then that and like one sentence statement about like just why it matters.
That's great.
And so I think that that's what I don't know. My vision now is that as Apps Weekly evolves, like you are becoming the voice of telling people why certain fun app news actually matters in their life.
Sure. I mean,
but doing it in like a fun, entertaining way instead of a like
100%. You take a silly news story that seems silly, but then you build around it. Like think about that Michigan recycling app thing, that story right there. It's like, you could go a cheesy route and be like, hey, remember those like things? Well, someone's going after that dime for that glass bottle. But then the why it's important would be like, do you realize like people don't do it because it's just laziness, or it's like logistically hard to go take your 50 bottles a week to the box. But actually that's money sitting there, and actually that's going to landfills this much of the time, and yada, 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 carbon footprint. And oh yeah, it's just an app, but imagine if everybody did it. And all of a sudden that little news story is like, dang, Michigan was really onto something. Like maybe we should help do it over here and be the app for it there. Right. And all of a sudden
it's not nickel and dime. It's like this impacts your world kind of thing. So it takes it from that to the next. I love that. Okay. Anything else to add? Last closing notes?
That's it. If you're ever interested in geeking out about apps, feel free to follow and reply to any email. I promise I'll write you back. And also, if you are someone that likes to talk about newsletters like this in general, feel free to email me at wade@wadesellers.com. I do like to geek out about this stuff.
Send him lots of hard curated questions. He's
Drop me.
Support 2.0, like casual support with Wade.
Yeah, I'll answer anything I can. And I like hopping on, Google Hangouts and geeking out. So
maybe we need to start like a newsletter creators like weekly hangout or something. That could be fun. All right. So we have gone long enough. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks, Wade. We are going to put some links where you can go find him in the description below, as well as the opportunity to ask questions right there in the comments. If it's for Curated, I'll try to give it a response. If it's about Apps Weekly or Wade in particular, you ask it there. I will go ping him and be like, hey, there's a question for you. So this has been a wonderful interview. It's been great, like going through Apps with Wade. I love this newsletter. You should go love it too.
I love talking to you, Ashley. Thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun.